Assisted suicide, is it a right that every American should have, or is it wrong to take a life, even if it's your own? It's your call this hour. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Lynn Doyle, revisiting a topic that was often discussed on this show during the Dr. Jack Kevorkian trial. You'll recall that he was sent to jail for 8 years for helping a terminally ill man commit suicide on 60 Minutes, no less, sparking a debate about the right for people to decide when and how to end their lives. Well, Dr. Kevorkian died recently, and the debate that defined his life is still being hotly contested, including right now on this show. Today, our two guests square off on assisted suicide. They are John Oberdiek, who is a professor of law at Rutgers School of Law in Camden. He's the director of faculty research at the law school, as well as the co-director of the Rutgers Institute for Law and Philosophy. And taking him on is Dr. Carl Benzio, who is a Christian psychiatrist and the executive director of Lighthouse Network. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here for a very, very important topic. I appreciate it. If you'd like to join in, we're going to invite you to do so right away. First, though, let me ask our guest, what is the major opposition to having a law in place that gives someone the right to make a decision about end of life?
Yeah, you know, I saw my daughter at a play about Snow White, a parody about Snow White, and in the end, you want the hero to come in and save a life, to give life, not to kill. You kill the villains, you save, those people that you want to save, those people that you love. And a law like this is something that kills. It not only kills the patient, but it's dangerous to physicians, dangerous to society, dangerous to public policy in many different ways.
Do you think it's dangerous because it could be abused?
Well, anytime we give people power, it's going to be abuse. That's just a given in our society and the way that we function in our core. So to have the power to give a physician a right to kill people, to give anybody a right to kill, the only time you get a right to kill is to self-defense or in war. We're not defending against anything here, but yet we're giving somebody the right to kill, especially somebody that should be a trusted member of our society where you have a strong relationship with, not somebody that you're going to be in fear of going to.
John, do you see it as a right to give someone the right to kill, or is it the right of an individual to make a decision about his or her own life?
Yeah, so I'd think about it a little bit differently. I'd think about it as protecting the autonomy of the patient themselves. So for example, someone who's in great pain or has very low prospect for a good life ahead of them, I would want that patient to have the option to end their life in a dignified manner and not to end their life in a way that involves a great deal of suffering, which of course, aside from being horrible for them, is something that's very difficult for their close family to watch, indeed for their trusted physician indeed to stand by and watch. So I think it's quite important actually that we accord people that right. Of course, there is an open question about how it should be exercised, and there should be regulations. But fundamentally, it's a matter of principle. I think people should have that choice.
And autonomy is important, but in this kind of the way it's set up, we have managed care, we have the government, we have two physicians, we have a potential consultant coming in, so it's really not an autonomous decision. If, as a psychiatrist, I'm taught if somebody's suicidal, we jump in to save them, or we put them on a commitment so we can get them treatment. But when this person is suicidal, we don't bring psychiatric care, we don't bring, let's manage the pain, let's find out what's underneath that's prompting the person to want to die. And if a person wants to die, I'm certainly not in favor of suicide, but they don't need to bring a physician involved. They can certainly kill themselves.
What if they are physically incapacitated, or as the gentleman that died at the hands of Dr. Jack Kevorkian's assistance on 60 Minutes, unable to really fulfill the death alone without some sort of assistance? Isn't it better that someone who is medically trained to make sure that it's done right helps, as opposed to you or I or
the people that have gone through that situation in Oregon and Washington, they're people that have the physical ability to be able to kill themselves. They're not incapacitated physically that they can't kill themselves. So that's something they don't need help to be able to do. They don't need to bring a physician, of all people, into the process to be able to kill them.
Except that in most cases, the way that the actual laws are implemented is that somebody gets a lethal dose of a drug, and that's something that requires a prescription. So that's not something that someone can simply get their hands on without the assistance of a doctor. Now, of course, there is the possibility of abuse here, but it's worth pointing out that at least in Oregon, which has the longest track record in this country, there haven't been any violations of this law.
Well, first of all, you don't have to report in Oregon. You're mandated to report, but there is no penalty to report. So the reporting system in Oregon has been very poor in the process. People they overdose all the time on over-the-counter medication, so you don't have to get a prescription. You don't need to involve a doctor in the process. On Google, you can Google many ways to commit suicide and be able to be assisted either on your own or a family member or somebody else, without needing a physician involved, without needing the medical community, a trusted, establishment of our community, that we want to maintain that trust and collaboration. That's why Hippocrates had his oath.
On that note, I am going to invite our viewers to be part of our conversation. If you'd like to tell us where you stand on this issue, and if you think a terminally ill person should have the right to end his own life, we're inviting you to do that now. If you were physically unable to do it yourself, would you like to be able to have a member of the medical profession be available and legally be able to assist you? Or do you think that taking any life under any circumstances is wrong? If you do want to join in with your questions or comments, you can email me directly at lynn@lynndoyle.net. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I posted this question just moments ago, and I'm going to share some of those comments with you later in the show. Right now, though, I do want to go to the telephone lines because we are giving everyone an opportunity to tell us what they think. Joining us first this hour is attorney Rita Marker. She is the Executive Director of the Patients' Rights Council. Rita, thank you so much for being with us.
I'm sorry, but we have a very bad connection here.
All right, well, what I'd like to ask you to do is to, I'll put you on hold and I'll come back to you momentarily. How's that?
Okay.
All right, thanks very much. All right, we will continue to take some calls later in the show, but while we're getting that taken care of, let's return to the conversation that we were talking about, where we were saying people have been very vocal on the social media sites that we've put out there, saying that they would like to be able to make this decision and use the term die with dignity.
So I do think that it's dying with dignity, and I think that a crucial component of dying with dignity, it's not just taking your life, whether it's illegal or not. It's actually taking your life in actual concert with the law. There's a great deal to be said in favor of having the state approve of what it is that you're doing, which is a way of saying to have society be okay with what it is that you're doing. When you break the law in killing yourself, as your suggestion seems to be as an availability right now, it seems to me that it casts a cloud over what's already a very difficult time in someone's life.
Yeah, suicide is not against the law at this point. So in none of the 50 states is committing suicide against the law. And what we're really talking about here is what is truly compassionate, what is truly dignified. I mean, coming alongside somebody, extending psychological care, treating their depression, treating their difficulties of not being in control, of what they're foreshadowing in the future, of difficult circumstances and pain and suffering, really coming alongside them spiritually, psychologically, relationally. That's what compassion is. Compassion is coming alongside, not marginalizing and killing.
Well, I think that compassion is those things also. I don't disagree with you about that. I just think that compassion actually encompasses more than that. So it's very possible that someone who may have been contemplating physician-assisted suicide might change their mind after consulting with a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or otherwise with someone there to talk them through what is obviously an extremely difficult time in life. However, if after that they still believe that they'd like to end their life in terms that they themselves accept, I can't imagine how you can contest that.
Yeah, the Hippocratic oath that doctors take is do no harm. So as a community, as a society, doctors are the last voice for people that are incapacitated, for people that are unconscious, for infants, for people with disabilities, for people that have dementia. Doctors are the last bastion of safety for that group, the last advocacy group for that population. And we don't want to distort that. We don't want them to take on negative terms with that and be untrusted. I mean, the legal community has had a big trouble with that. The legal community doesn't speak for the truth. They, have bowed to various different legislations, and now the legal community isn't a trusted profession in the process. There's a lot of, wisecracks and jokes about we don't want the medical profession that take care of people to fall into that kind of trap.
Okay, on that note, I am going to have to take a quick break, but we want to include you in our conversation. We'd like to know what you think. Do you think that doctors have an oath to follow, that they should never be able to help someone commit suicide or take their own life? Or do you think that a person should have that right to so-called die with dignity? We're going to take your comments and questions when we return, and we'll get some phone calls in as well. So please stay with us. It's Your Call continues right after this.